Okay, so we're going over notes 1-3. So on the first few, all we're going to do is we're going to write an algebraic expression, okay, for this verbal expression. So, for example, if you have any questions about which one is what, you might want to look at this table here. The one that might be unfamiliar to you would be division is quotient. You can call it that. Well, let's go ahead and look at number 1. We'll do just a few, not all of them. So the sum of 6 times a number and 25. So the sum of 6 times a number and 25. All right, so we have 6 times a number plus 25. Just like that. All right, so again, the sum of 6 times a number and 25. Now, number 2, it says 4 times the sum of a number and 3. So we're going to have a 4. All right, and we're going to multiply it times the sum. So we're going to multiply it times the sum of a number and 3. All right, but notice that I'm going to put a parenthesis here because they want me to multiply that 4 times all of this, whatever the sum is. Does that make sense? Make sense? All right. On the next one, 3 is probably one of the ones that I would see a mistake quite often. All right, it says 7 less than 15 times the number. 7 less means I'm going to subtract 7. All right. It doesn't mean 7 minus, it means minus 7. 15 times a number. So we're going to put a 15 n over here. Does that make sense? All right, so be careful if it says less than, we're going to put the minus 7 to the right, not to the left. We're going to put that to the right. All right. Moving on, let's look at number 4. The difference of 9 times the number and the quotient of 6 and the same number. Okay, that's a mouthful. The difference, that means you're going to subtract, that's the times there, and we have a quotient here. Okay, so we have the difference of 9 times the number. 9 times the number, so the difference means you're subtracting. And the quotient of 6 and the same number. That means you're going to divide 6 by a number. So minus 6n. All right, just like that. All right, let's go ahead and skip down to number 7, for example. 4 times the square of a number. So we got 4 times. And notice that I'm not writing, right? I'm not writing a multiplication by a multiplication symbol between 4 and n. I'm just going to leave it as 4n. Hopefully you understand that.
4n squared?
Yes. So 4n squared and a number increase by 5 times the same number. So plus 5n. Like that. Alright. Now, unfortunately, we're going to have to write a verbal sentence to represent each equation. Now, we're only going to do one example because this is going to take forever. And I hate writing. Okay, so we can all relate, right, bros?
Right.
Screw you, English teachers. Oh, wait, this has been recorded. Alright. Number 11. So let's do 11. It's kind of a long one, but let's do 11. All right, so I'm going to write it like this, see if you can follow. All right, so in this one, notice that you have a quotient here, I have a division, I have a times here, I have an addition, I have a subtraction. So I'm going to write this as the quotient of 5 times. All right, so notice I'm writing the quotient of 5 times a number. Are you with me so far? Alright, so the quotient of 5 times the number and the sum of that number and 3. Alright, so to write what an equal sign, you can just write is or is equal, whichever one you want really, but I'm just going to write is, and the is represent the equal sign. Is the difference of that number and 8. Oh man, this is the most writing I've done in years. And surprisingly, I'm still literate. Alright. We good with that? Okay, so now let's go to the back. This shouldn't be, hopefully, not much trouble for you. Now let's look in the back. Alright, so on this one we're going to actually be solving equations. So we're actually getting back to what algebra is mostly about. Okay, so some of you have problems with remembering, okay, do I divide first? Do I take the, do I divide or subtract first? So all I would tell you is to always look at PEMDAS. Oops. Right, so we got PEMDAS, but when we're solving, we're actually going to do that from the bottom up. Right, so when you're solving, and maybe some of you that kind of intuitively know how to do this didn't know that. All right, so when you're doing PEMDAS, when you're solving, you're actually going to do it backwards. For example, here you have a minus, you have a multiplication. Well, which one am I going to do first? I'm going to do addition or subtraction first. Does that make sense? So on the very first one, unfortunately, they start you off with a fraction. I apologize. All right, we got 2/3 m is equal to 1/2. All right, so at this point, I don't really know where your level's at. I really don't know. Some of this could be really easy for you. Okay, so what I'm trying to go after is I'm trying to get rid of this 2/3. All right, so to get rid of that 2/3, how would I get rid of that 2/3?
Dividing.
We can divide, yes. Now I'm going to go with that one. We're going to divide by what?
2/3.
Right. Now when you divide by 2/3, you remember what we talked about? What happens when you divide a fraction by a fraction?
Keep, flip, change.
Right. Keep, change, flip, right? So if I flip the 2/3, what would you get? 3/2, right? So you guys saying dividing by 2/3 and me saying multiplying by 3/2 is the same thing. Do you understand that? Okay, so normally that's what your teacher would normally say, well, you're going to multiply times the reciprocal, right? So that's what they would say, multiply times the reciprocal, because that would be the same thing as dividing by that fraction. So we're going to multiply by 3/2 on each side. Okay, and then that is going to cancel out to be 1, and this would be m then. Or, this would be 1 times m, which would be m. And then we have 3/2 times 1/2. So remember, multiply across. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 2 is 4. So the answer is 3/4. You with me? Right, let's go to number 2. Number 2, we have 7 minus 1/2x is equal to 3. What to do first? One more time.
7 minus.
Subtract the 7. So we have 1/2x is equal to -4. And then now I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the first one. I'm going to multiply, well, I can divide by -1/2, which is the same thing as multiplying, times -2, right? Or -2/1, whichever one you look at it. I'm going to put that in parentheses. It bothers me when the negative is just hanging out there. You understand why I just multiplied times the -2? It's a reciprocal of -1/2 is the same thing. Okay, so that's gonna cancel out. Now don't get all screwed up here. If I multiply a negative times a negative, I get a what? Positives, right? So I'm gonna get a positive x here. And now I have -4 times -2, which is positive 8. Alright, moving on. Number 3 should be easy. Hopefully this was more like what you remember from, like, I don't know, 8th grade or something. I don't know. What should I do here? Subtract 5x, that's fine. Could I have subtracted 3x? I could have. It would have got me the same answer, right? So we have -2x plus 17 is equal to -13. Next step. Subtract the 17, very good. So we have -2x is equal to -30. And then now I'm going to divide both sides by -2. Alright, I know that I need to divide because what happens between this -2 and this x, that's multiplication. That's -2 times x. So I'm going to do the opposite. Alright. So now I'm going to have x is equal to 15. Positive 15. What else do we want to do here? Okay, number 4. What should I do? The Distribute, very good. Could I divide by 5 also if I wanted to? I could divide by 5 if I wanted to also, right? This one wouldn't be that bad. But let's go ahead and distribute. I think that might be a little bit easier for y'all. So we have 20 minus not 2. Whoops. Oh no. I'm going to have to start the video all over. Just kidding. Alright, so we have that right there. What's the next step? Yeah, we can add the 5K. Now it might be a little bit faster. It's about 1 line faster, really. And that's going to give me 20 is equal to negative 5K. And I'm not going to do 5 or 6, okay? So I'm just going to write on this side. So again, I'm not going to do 5 or 6. So we got 20 is equal to negative 5K. So again, don't forget the negative 5 and K are being multiplied. So therefore, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. So negative 4 is equal to K. Okay, hopefully not too bad. Now the ones that, go ahead.
Are we marking out 5 and 6?
Yeah, I'm marking them out because I'm not doing them. They're kind of repetitive examples at this point, right? Now, go ahead.
We mark them out too?
Sure. It's your paper, brother. You do what your paper what you want. All right, so yeah, notice that you have 17, 19, 20, 21. Okay, I forgot the 18. Let's go ahead and point that out. Okay, sorry. This next one will help you a lot if you're in a physics class. All right, in my physics class, this helped me quite a bit to solve for a variable instead of a number, because then after that, if I solve for a variable, I can then just plug those numbers in over and over and over, and I wouldn't have to then rework everything, every problem. I didn't have to rework it with the problems. Yes, sir.
I said you didn't forget the 18 is down there.
Well, that's the page number,
I know.
young man.
I was joking.
There's no jokes on video, sir.
Sorry.
Apology accepted. Okay, so on this part, on 17, all right, I'm trying to solve for t. So I'm trying to solve for this t right here. Okay? So if I'm solving for t, I'm trying to get that t by itself. Now, it can be weird for you because it's on the bottom of a fraction, right? But let's quickly talk about what is happening before we move on. The t is underneath a fraction, so that means I'm dividing, and that t is also attached to that 2 because you're multiplying. So you have division and you have multiplication, all right? 2 ways to do it if you like, but the way that I like to do it is, in order to get this from the denominator to the numerator, or sorry, to the top, is to multiply both sides times 2t. All right, so if I have s, remember this is an s, not a 5. I'll multiply this times 2t, and this times 2t. That is going to cancel that. Okay. Oops, come on, camera here. So then that is going to give me 20t. Okay. Now hopefully that's easier. How do I get rid of that 20? Divide by 20. I always want to divide. I always want to divide by the number that's attached to the variable that I'm trying to get at. That makes sense? Moving on. All right, so hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Now the other way, if you don't like this step right here, if you're like, man, I just don't get it, what you can do is put this over 1, like that, like 10 over 1, and then cross multiply, like you did in geometry, right? Because I would have 10 times 2t, which is 20t. And then s times 1, which is just s. So either one you like, whichever. Yes, sir.
So you make it as 5/20ths?
That's an s. Remember, don't forget, this is an s. See, that's that s right there. Yeah, I know. That's honestly, I have a problem. I don't like it when they use s's, and I don't like them when they use q's, because my s looks like 5s and the q's look like 9s. But I'm sorry. Okay, so now on the next one, for example, I have 3pq over r is equal to 12, and I'm solving for p, right? So if you look at p, is being multiplied times 3 in Q and is being divided by R. So the first step is the same as the last one. I'm trying to get that. All right. I want to get the P by itself. All right. So what I can do is I can go ahead and multiply both sides times R. Or if you want to do it like this, which is perfectly fine by me, you can cross multiply, and if you cross multiply, you're going to get 3PQ is equal to 12R. Right? Weird. Okay, now the next step is I want to get the P by itself, so therefore, since P is being multiplied times 3 in Q, I can divide by both P and Q. Sorry, by 3 and Q. So if I divide this, I can actually do it at the same time, all right? There's no need for 2 steps. So that 3 is going to cancel here. That Q is going to cancel. And then we got 12 divided by 3, which is 4. So P is equal to 4R over Q. And then, yeah, this is a Q. It looks like a 9 by now. So, sucks, but that's the answer. All right. Let me show you what I want you to do for the homework now. Okay. All right, on the homework, I only want you to do 1 through 5 odds, or 1, 3, and 5, and then 11 through 35 odds, meaning you're going to skip 7 through 10. All right, so again, that's your homework. I do have the solutions for it somewhere, but I can't seem to find them right now. So, okay, yeah, I'm not going to give the solutions for 1, 3, and 5, but the other ones are fine. So here are the solutions, though. There is 1/4, and you can actually see me work that out. That's 1/4. R is equal to 8 for 15. There could be a mistake here and there. I try to be careful, more careful this time, the first time at least. We got 3/7 on 17. We got 4/19. We got 5 on 21. We got 3 on 23. 5 on 25. I think this one might be the one that gives you the most trouble here, maybe. M is equal to E over C squared. Interesting. Very interesting. It really is. I'm not being sarcastic. Talk about that later. Alright, and on this one is H plus GT squared over T is equal to V. Okay. And then I'll show you the back here in a second, as soon as you're done. Oh, on the back. Right, we got those two, and by the way, I know it says geometry on 35, but trust me, it's algebra. I guess that's 31 up here. And then 33, and that's it. Alright? So again, try your best, and we'll see how we do.